This is the Positive EQ Perspective, where you'll find a more positive outlook on life by developing your emotional intelligence. My name is Kirsty Gwynn. I'm a coaching psychologist and speaker, and I'm passionate about helping people to experience more calm, contentment, and joy every day. When you feel like you're the one going out of your way to make other people happy in your relationships, but it isn't reciprocated, that can feel really lonely, and it's exhausting. Maybe you find yourself wishing that people would prioritize your needs as much as you prioritize theirs, and you'd love a break from constantly being the giver. I remember what a lonely and exhausting place that was. Every single one of us deserves mutually satisfying relationships, and today I'm going to share with you 3 things that you can do to make things fairer and make your relationships more reciprocal. And I've learned these through personal experience. The first is to say no unless you can do it without resentment. Back when I felt like my relationships were out of balance, the truth is I felt resentful a lot of the time. I felt like I was constantly being asked to do things that I didn't have the time or energy or resources for, and then not getting as much appreciation or much appreciation at all for it. And maybe you felt that way too. Back then, I felt pretty helpless to change that dynamic. We can't control other people, right? So it really seemed to me like I was stuck. But a big part of it was also that I just really felt I couldn't say no. Deep down, I was convinced that I always needed to be helping out in order to be a good friend or to be a good partner. I thought that's what it meant to be a good friend or partner. And my self-worth was not just quite attached to that idea, but really attached to it. Even just the idea of saying no was terrifying for me. I worried that I would come across as difficult or unhelpful or a bad friend. And truthfully, saying yes seemed like the best way to keep the peace and to keep my loved ones happy. And it seemed like the best thing for the relationship. But I wasn't 100% correct about that, as it turned out. You see, what I didn't realize was that saying yes actually came with a really hefty price tag, not just for me, but for the relationship. Whenever I made these sacrifices, and sometimes I would make them, even without being asked, I couldn't help getting resentful. I'm a human being, right? And that's what I've noticed happens whenever I stretch myself beyond my limits. And it's likely that it probably happens for you too, right? That resentment comes up. And this resentment that I then felt then affected the relationship in a number of ways. For example, I found myself keeping score of who had done more or less. And that's just not something that I tend to do when I'm not overstretched. I was no longer able to really give from a place of generosity. I was exhausted and overextended. And sometimes I'm sad to say that I even showed it, right? Instead of clearly saying what I couldn't or couldn't do and trusting that people would, respond well to that or respect my needs, even if sometimes they didn't, trusting that most of the time people would, or most people cared enough about me to care about my needs, it would sometimes just say yes, but do it in a really begrudging kind of way. And my resentment, it showed. So you won't be surprised to know that this did not get me the appreciation that I craved. And it just left me feeling more unseen and more confused, and probably left my loved ones feeling pretty confused as well, because it's really sending this mixed message between my, body language versus what I said. Right? Human beings we're pretty smart. Like, we can pick up if someone genuinely means yes or doesn't. And that resentment also was really detrimental for my mental health, because I felt like my needs weren't important, and not just to other people. I used to think, well, okay, my needs aren't important to them, but the truth is I wasn't exactly valuing my own needs either, right? Though the fact that I was never saying no, I wasn't really checking in with what do I need, or where are my limits? How much energy do I have? Can I do this? And can I really respect my own needs enough to speak up about them? right? I now also know that it's a major trigger of depression, right? Being passive in this way, never saying no. And I've started to notice or I not just started, but I now see a very, very clear link between that. And it's something that I know is essential to kind of maintaining my positive mental health. And it's one of the keys for me to a positive perspective is to communicate clearly and honestly about what I can and can't do. So over time, also that resentment really started then to affect the relationships, and little things began to feel a lot bigger than they probably were. And eventually, the two specific relationships that I'm thinking about now actually ended up breaking down. They're no longer in my life anymore, and I'm convinced that resentment sucked the life out of them. And I really believe now, well, I really believe that relationships can't thrive in a state of resentment. And the thing is, what's really sad is that, my relationships are really precious to me. And so I want to preserve them. I don't want that to happen, right? That resentment is slowly kind of sucking the oxygen out of them. And if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to bet that your relationships are really, really important to you too. That's why you give so much, right? Because you care so deeply, you care so much. So today I have a completely different perspective on saying no, and I'd like to offer it to you. I used to think that saying no was selfish, or, it wasn't what a good friend did, or it wasn't what a helpful person did. But now I think of it as an essential part of keeping my relationships healthy, right? If I can do it from a place of generosity and I can give freely, then that's wonderful, and I'll gladly say yes. But if I check in with myself and I know, well, this is actually going to push me into resentment, then I need to say no, because in the long term, that's actually better for the relationship and better for the other person, I really believe, because it's better for the relationship. It also turns out that when I'm not taking on things that I don't actually have the capacity to do, I'm a lot happier, and I'm also more fun as a friend. I'm more playful, I laugh more easily, and I have buckets of compassion when my loved ones are struggling, because the truth is I'm just no longer pouring from an empty cup, right? So if the cost of saying yes is resentment, it's a price too high. And the prize of saying no will be a happier, healthier, and more sustainable relationship for both people. The second thing to do to make things mutual is to practice receiving. Another thing that I was really good at back then was turning down people's offers of help or support. So the truth is, I was way more comfortable as the helper than the receiver of help. And I remember feeling, at times like, oh, nobody ever steps up to help me the way that I do them. But from where I'm standing now, I can see that honestly, even if they tried, I didn't let them help. So similar to saying no, it was deeply uncomfortable for me to let someone inconvenience themselves on my behalf. It triggered all kinds of fears in me, that I wasn't doing enough, that they'd hold it against me, that I was a bad friend, that I was needy, right? And so I always turned down those offers. And in this area, it turns out I was great at saying no. And I kind of had to switch these all around and start saying yes more to offers of help, and start, saying no if I was asked for something that I couldn't give resentment free. So this is one area, clearly I did not have a problem saying no, and I needed to go the other way. Unwittingly, right, over time, I trained most people in my life to stop offering to do things for me, because they'd learned that if I did, I would brush them off. Right? And maybe, like me, you're just trying to be the best friend possible by not needing too much and making sure that people are never inconvenienced. But here's the thing. Kindness is a beautiful part of friendship. And if you've ever done something kind for someone else that they really appreciated, which I know you have, you know how good it can feel to be trusted in that way, right? People like doing kind things. In fact, there was a review of different positive psychology interventions that I remember coming across in my master's, and I can't remember exactly who did the review, but They had looked at a host of different well-being interventions to look at what had the biggest and most long-lasting effects on our well-being. And doing an act of kindness was it, right? There was kind of no intervention that was as effective as doing an act of kindness for someone else. It gives us such a wonderful well-being boost. And you'll know, like, if you've ever done something kind for someone else, which I know you have, and they've really appreciated it, you know how good it can feel to be trusted in that way. Right? There's no better feeling than having that kindness received with a smile and a genuine thank you. Right? Or that meant so much to me, or that made me so happy. Or I couldn't have done it without your help. When we help someone, we feel good, we feel useful, and we feel trusted, right? The person who's receiving our help is essentially saying, your help is enough for me, it's good enough for me, your help is worthy. And that's a gift that we can give our loved ones by receiving their offers of help and support. Many people tell me that they want to get better at asking for help, but I often feel like that's kind of on the other side of the spectrum. And if you aren't comfortable receiving yet, then this is a better place to start, right? To just start with receiving. And later we'll be able to build up to asking for help, but we kind of need to get onto that scale first, and starting at receiving is a good place to begin. So when someone offers, to drop something off for you, say yes, please, that would be great. When they ask if you need help arranging something, let them know how much that would mean to you. So this was just one of the best things that I did to improve my own self-worth as well. That was a surprising benefit. When I started receiving people's help, however uncomfortable it felt at first, I was essentially also saying to myself, I'm worthy of this, right? I'm worthy even in the context of asking for help, right? I'm deserving of people's help. And that did wonders for my self-esteem, just as a side benefit. But what if you worry that some people might be offering help when they don't really mean it, right? And the reality is it might be the case, right? Maybe they've learned that you'll always turn their help down, so it might be easy to offer help when they don't really mean it. One amazing and unexpected thing, aside from the self-worth benefit, one amazing and unexpected thing that happened in my relationships when I started practicing receiving is that they became more authentic. Right? People knew I would accept, so they started only offering when they really meant it. And that helped me then to trust that they meant it. And that showed me that there are people in the world that genuinely care about me and want to give. And that is a far cry from feeling like I was the only one doing the giving. Well, that's it from me. Thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. Every subscriber counts, and it helps this information to reach more people. Thank you, and I'll see you next week on the Positive EQ Perspective. If you're looking to calm negative thoughts, accept yourself, and live joyfully, then you need my free roadmap to overcome negative thinking. You'll discover 7 steps to follow, as well as 3 mistakes most people make trying to improve their mindset and life that only make things worse. Visit positiveeq.com/free. That's positiveeq.com/free.